Hello and welcome to Read Brave Comics, a community-built comics podcast from the Graphomania Podcast Network. I'm Vinton Bain, and today I am joined with Sarah Cade Pezant.
Hi!
So you might know Sarah because she's been on the podcast a couple times, but even if you haven't heard those episodes, you might know her from all of her other podcasts that she does.
I do a lot of other podcasts. Yes, I'm a part of the Common Room Radio Podcast Network, where we also do a comics podcast called Excelsior. You are my co-host on that, along with our friend Alistair Stevens, and also do a podcast called Porch Club, which is a lifestyle podcast, kind of. And I mean, I think that's pretty. We're also in the middle of doing a Disney villain deathmatch, where we are trying to determine who the very best Disney villain is. So that's a lot of fun. Check those out. Head on over to commonroomradio.com or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Well, so let's start off this podcast the way we usually do, which is by talking about what you've been reading lately.
Excellent.
Since you haven't been on the show in a while, this can go quite a ways back for you.
Yes.
What have you been reading lately?
Let's see. The comics that I've been reading lately. Well, I just finished the Scarlet Witch run of comics that finished up a couple of months ago. That was the only one that I was like really super keeping up with because Scarlet Witch is my favorite character.
Yeah.
I've also been reading. I just reread Chelsea Cain's Mockingbird run.
Right.
Because we did an episode about that over on Excelsior. We also did an episode on Excelsior about Tom King's Vision series, which was really excellent. And otherwise, I've been keeping up with the new Unstoppable Wasp by Jeremy Whitley. It's an excellent series, and I highly recommend it. It's like one of the best like girl power series out there. And Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, by Kate Leth, which also has just recently finished its run. And I think that actually the last time I was on this episode, those were all basically the same comics I was reading at the time.
Well, you got to find what you like and continue on reading them.
I think so. Yes.
You found your niche.
I did.
So are you caught up with Unstoppable Wasp?
I am. I believe so. I have issues 1 through 3, and I think issue 4 is supposed to come out this month.
Nope.
Oh, well,
issue 5 came out last week.
Dang it, what happened? How am I missing these? Well, apparently I'm a little behind. I'm super terrible about reading these comics on time and then also remembering what I have. I own 3 discrete issues of Hawkeye #3 because I kept forgetting that I already owned it.
Well, you can pass them out to your friends.
I guess so. Yeah, here's the middle of a Kate Bishop Hawkeye story. Good luck.
Yeah, I know you and your husband every Wednesday have a date of going to the comic book shop, picking up your comics from your pull list, and then going and getting Chinese food. And then every time I talk to your husband, I say, hey, have you been reading any comics lately? He goes, no, I haven't had time. So as far as I know, both of you mostly just pick up comics and then stack them around your house.
Yeah, we are supporting our local comic book shops. We purchase the comics and then we stuff them into boxes, never to be seen again. The way that you're supposed to.
But I do know that if I really need you to read anything, I can just put it forward as something we have to read for Excelsior, and then you'll read it.
Yep, and then I'll do it, and I'll get it done, and I'll get it taken care of, and so that has been most of my comic ingestion lately. Has been the stuff that we're doing, like for the podcast and for various episodes and shows that we're having to do. But yeah, just trying to keep up with it. But there's so much good stuff out there right now. And it's hard to keep track. Also, I finally finished playing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, so that was taking up a lot of my time.
It was.
Yes.
I think that was just who you became for a while.
Yeah, when that game first came out, I disappeared off the face of the planet for a week and didn't talk to anyone. I didn't feed my husband, didn't clean my house.
You didn't have a husband? You didn't have a house?
No, it was just me and Link on an adventure to save Hyrule, and I finally did it.
Well, I'm glad you accomplished your goals.
Thank you. Me too.
And now that you can return to comic books and we can talk all about them.
Yes.
And I'll have to have you on again in a month when you've read some more.
Yeah, that'll be great.
So as for me, I read a handful of things. It was a bit of a busy week with Free Comic Book Day and everything. I read a couple of DC titles. I read the Batman issue 22, which is the third part to the Button series that they're doing, the event that they're doing where they're bringing in Watchmen that I've been talking about.
Yeah.
It was really good. Batman got to meet the Flashpoint version of Batman, which is his father, because in the Flashpoint version, Bruce Wayne was the one who died as a kid, and his father lived on and became Batman to avenge his son, and became more of a violent Batman. He uses guns and...
Well, I'm into that.
Yeah, so he's super like that. But I really enjoyed the issue. it was kind of interesting to see Bruce being put face to face with his father here in this moment. And he kept not wanting to look at him or talk to him. And Thomas was like, look at me, talk to me, son. I've been waiting for this moment. And Bruce is just like, this isn't his first rodeo. He's been to other realities and other time streams. Sure. And he's like, I'm not getting attached to you. You're not my father. My father's dead.
Oh, that sounds really rough.
But they do have a really nice moment at the end. And then Bruce does get a little attached at the very end. And it's a little heartwarming there and a little heartbreaking. But my favorite moment is when they realize that people are invading the Batcave. And Thomas pulls out his gun to start fighting them, and Batman throws a battering at it and knocks it out of his hand. He's like, oh, hell nah, not in my house, son.
That's not how we do this, Dad.
So that was my favorite moment of that.
That's excellent.
I also read the Free Comic Book Day of Wonder Woman because I wasn't sure what it was, and I wanted to read some Free Comic Book Day comics. That is the only one that I actually got to because I worked Free Comic Book Day, and I haven't had a moment to sit down and read comics since then, really. But turns out it's just issue number 2 from the new run by Greg Rucka, and it was pretty good. I don't know that I needed another origin story for Wonder Woman. I
feel like I have the Azzarello run of the Wonder Woman comics, which I guess came out a couple of years ago, and then with Rebirth starting, it seems to me, in my very limited knowledge, that all of the Wonder Woman stories we do are just various origin stories of Wonder Woman. So
it seems to be that way. Yeah. It definitely does. This one was done pretty well. I think they're really playing off of the movie because it seemed like this issue was really closely tied to what we've seen in the trailer is going to be her origin here. So I think they're trying to play off of that. It did weird me out when I found out it was issue 2, but it's from volume 2 of Wonder Woman, and it's because they're doing this odds and evens number stories. Yeah. So volume 1 is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. And I'm like, oh, what? Okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
So it got me intrigued. It made me want to kind of read more and see how they're playing this, if they're meant to be read that way or not. I mean, the issues coming out that way would say they're meant to be read back and forth, but then putting them out in 2 separate volumes would say they're not.
Yeah,
so
that's
really
interesting.
What they want me to do there.
So how did Free Comic Book Day go? I wasn't able to go out and see everybody, but how was your experience with that?
Free Comic Book Day was wonderful.
Yeah?
I was there for 10 and a half hours.
Wow.
Taking pictures and running around suggesting comics, trying to sell as much Black Hammer and Vision as possible. And I got to hang out with your husband for a while. He came and worked, and Robbie was there, and Buck was there, of course, and all of my friends hanging out and selling comics and being superheroes.
That sounds like a good day.
It was quite fantastic. I really did enjoy it. All those photos are up on the New World Comics Facebook page. If you need the link to that, it's on at least last episode's show notes. If I remember, I'll put it in this episode's show notes.
Sounds good.
But I think that's just facebook.com/New World Comics OKC.
There you go. Perfect.
So I also read a bunch of Marvel like I usually do. I didn't read anything non-Marvel and DC, which is a little out of the normal, but I don't know if there was anything that I've been reading to read. So maybe I just missed some things because no time. But I read Black Bolt in issue number 1, and this isn't something I expected to even care about really that much. I mean, I've always liked Black Bolt, but I don't really care much about the Inhumans. I'm more of an X-Men fan, and I feel like the Inhumans are just being used to replace the X-Men because Marvel doesn't have the movie right, so they don't want to promote it too much.
Right.
So that's kind of my feeling on the Inhumans. But this issue of Black Bolt was really dark and really beautiful. The art in it was just wonderful. He wakes up in prison, and he's got a muzzle on to keep him from using his power.
Oh, wow.
And he's trying to find his way out of this weird psychedelic looking prison that you find out pretty early on was meant for his brother who was evil, but somehow he got switched.
The Blacker Bolt.
Do you know what Black Bolt's real name is?
I know nothing about Black Bolt.
Black Bolt's real name is Blackagar Boltagon.
No, it is not.
Yep, sure is.
Are you serious?
That's something that I have forgotten until I was reading this, and I was like, oh yeah, that is his name.
Blackagar Boltagon. Why? That's unnecessary. Just call him like Billy Blaze or something like that.
That was going to be my name when I was born. That's a deep pull. People on this show probably don't know. But I will definitely be continuing this series. It was really wonderful. And because I've always liked Black Bolt, I think it really touched on all the things I do like about Black Bolt. He's just super, super powerful, and he's very confident. Yeah. And he carries himself with that royalty. But he's never been like a pompous ass or anything.
Right, yeah.
So, well, maybe he has been, but not in the readings that I've done and what I've seen and what I like in Black Bolt. So I also read Jean Grey #1, which was interesting. This is another one of the X-Men reboots that they've been doing, or not necessarily reboots, but retitling and reforming of the X-Men.
Sure.
And so we're getting a Jean Grey series here by Dennis Hopeless, which I love Dennis Hopeless. I'm not sure what to think of this issue, though. They started it right off by going, hey, look, Phoenix is coming. Like, it's on the cover. And I don't care, guys. Like, can you not tie Jean Grey and Phoenix together all the time. Like, can we let her be something else other than this cosmic force? I don't know. I do trust Hopeless, and I think it will be good. Continuing that, I read X-Men Gold #3. These things came out really quick. I think one came out, and then a week later 2, and then a week later 3, or something like that. But I think within the past month, we've had all 3 issues, and I think it was because of the art debacle that they had.
What was the art debacle?
Oh, you haven't heard about this?
No.
So there was some secret messages put in by the artist that were very anti-Semitic or taken to be anti-Semitic. And I guess I haven't read too much into it, but some people were saying that they aren't necessarily that. He was definitely pushing that they aren't necessarily that, but a lot of people were saying this is very sensitive and wasn't the right place to do it. And the editors didn't catch that he was doing it. It's just like in the background, some numbers and letters, and on like Colossus's hat and or shirt. And so it was a big debacle, and I think they held off on issue 2 so they could go through and make sure there wasn't anything there.
Oh, wow.
And then they released issue 3 on time, so it seemed like these came out like really fast succession. But issue 3, I really enjoyed the way the team is coming together. I think it's still really pushing for old X-Men fans here. And I think Gold so far is, to me, the best place to jump in for new people, because Blue is just a little confusing, and they're not making it much easier for people to jump in and understand what's going on.
You're saying like Gold and Blue, are they calling it like X-Men Gold and like X-Men Blue?
Yeah,
like,
it's the 2 different titles and the 2 different teams.
Got it.
Blue is the time-displaced younger team.
Okay.
And Gold is all the old people, not necessarily old, but like the teams from past, people from the past, coming back together to form an X-Men team. These are like the classic heroes. Of course, you have Kitty Pryde, and you have Old Man Logan, because Wolverine has to be in every book ever, possibly.
Naturally, yeah.
Storm. So you get some more classic heroes here. Nightcrawler, Colossus. So it's been really fun.
That's
really
great. I knew who every single one of those people were.
Yeah. I'm proud of you. I also read Champions #8. You've been reading Champions, right?
Yes, I have been. Well, I've been collecting Champions. I have not yet actually caught up with reading Champions, but since I did read Tom King's Vision series, and now I know who Viv is more, I'm more excited about that and like jumping into that. And I'm really excited about, really diving in and getting to like see this. Like, I love teenage super teams. It's one of my very favorite things.
Yeah, it's fantastic. This series I was probably more excited about this series than almost anything when it was announced.
Oh, really?
I was so stoked about it. And I think that set the bar really high, and it has been a little bit disappointing. It's been good, and I've enjoyed every issue of it, but it hasn't met the bar that I set for it, because I got hyped about it. It was started off with a bang and really good, but it slowly has just become, I don't know if I really want to keep going with this. This issue was really good, though. I really enjoyed it. The only thing I didn't enjoy is it starts off with them. They're all kind of being mopey because the bad guys from the comic took their name brand and trademarked it, and then started selling their merchandise and made them look like sellouts, and started making them look bad. So people on social media and stuff started being like, "Oh, Champions are sellouts, and they don't actually care about anything."
That's a really interesting plan for a villain.
And so all the heroes were like being mopey about it, but I was a little bit of spoilers, I guess. Skip ahead 15 or 30 seconds if you don't want spoilers. I was with Nova on this one, who just was like, "I'm tired of this moping," and flew off. And at first you're like, well, that's kind of a jerk move. But then he just came back and he had recorded the video saying, "Hey, this isn't us, and we're not about this. Burn all your merchandise." And all the fans started burning their merchandise.
Nice. Wow.
Like, that was an easy fix. This is exactly what I was thinking when I was reading this. Why not just post a video of yourself saying this?
That's amazing.
But it was still a good issue. And at the very end, there's this twist with Viv and Vision, and I kind of wonder what's going on there. Basically, she's grounded. But I feel like Vision seems out of character in doing this, so I feel like something else might be going on.
Okay, that's really interesting.
So it is interesting. We'll see what happens with that. I'm glad it's on the upturn, because the villains that they've been facing, this other team that's like the Champions, I don't like, and I don't like reading about them. Like, it's not that I don't like them like they're villains and I shouldn't like them. I just don't like reading about them. I don't want them in my comics. I also read the new issue of Spider-Man with Miles Morales, and there was this amazing joke in there where this girl is asking for Ganke's name, and he can't tell her because he knows if he tells her, she'll be able to figure out who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
So she's like, well, just give me another name. And he says, Ned. And she says, you don't look like a Ned, which is obviously a joke with Spider-Man Homecoming and the fact that Ned in the movie is definitely Ganke. It's the same character. They just stole him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're doing there, because
so Ganke is from the Ultimates universe and is like Miles Morales' best bud?
Yeah, and the Ultimates universe is now part of the 616.
Oh, okay, great.
Since Secret Wars, Miles and everyone that was kind of connected with him got shoved right into the 616, even though they're not calling it 616 anymore. And they're all part of that. They're not calling it anything. They're just telling us it's not the 616 anymore.
It's the 617 now, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Because they made a big deal acting like there wasn't any numbers in where there was just going to be one universe and that was it. But
that's insane. You can't do that.
We know that there's still other universes.
Yeah, that's impossible.
So I'm just assuming this is still 616. And they're just, they'll fix that mistake later and just retcon it. Always have been 616 probably. But so they're in the same universe. Miles hangs out with Peter Parker pretty frequently. That's why Miles is on the Champions team.
Okay, cool.
And other things like that. But yeah, so that was a great joke in there just because Brian Bendis obviously knows that they used his character in the movie and just changed the name and made it a different character in Peter Parker's life. I'm still a little mad about that because I feel like when a Miles Morales animated movie comes out, it's supposed to be coming out, I don't remember the dates now, maybe a year or two from now. People are just gonna be like, oh, why'd they just rip off this character for it? And like, no, other way around.
You get your movie viewing audience mixed up with your comic reading audience. And they're like,
But the last issue, Miles Morales' mom found out that he's Spider-Man, and she kind of had a breakdown about that because his dad knew and even Gunky knew. And she has a meeting with him at the park and talks through some things and then just kind of walks away, drops the mic on him emotionally. And he loses it, goes back to his dorm room, and then can't even deal with his roommates and leaves, and then goes to chase down the mugger and then chases him down to this like biker bar where all these guys try to attack him and just beats up everyone in the bar.
Oh, wow.
And it's really intense.
Oh, man.
But the mugger deserved it because he like punched a lady in the face and the lady had like a bruise, and Miles tried hugging her and she felt her cheek on his face and was like, oh, my cheek. And he's like, did he punch you? And she just like took off after him.
Oh, man. Miles, you might be my guy.
He was so mad. It was great. I loved it. And finally, I read The Unstoppable Wasp just before recording this, which I have loved so much. This is issue 5. And finally, the team of girls that she's been collecting have assembled for science.
Yes.
Her friend has a bomb implanted in her head. That's where we left off with the last issue. And she has to find a way to get it out of her head before the next day when it's going to go off.
Oh, my gosh.
This was her friend that was sent to retrieve her to bring her back to the Red Room. And so she's trying to figure it out with all these girls assembled. And of course, Jarvis is there trying to help out too. And Jarvis is
Butler
adorable.
Jarvis, which is really weird.
Nadia's in the back of the car with her friend trying to get the bomb out. And Jarvis is driving going, Nadia, put your seatbelt on, put your seatbelt on. And she's like, there's no time. This bomb's going to go off. It's amazing. And then Matt Murdock shows up and is like, you have a court date. What are you doing here? You're not answering your phone. And it's adorable. It's great. I love it. I love everything about this comic. I can understand why some people are like, oh, it's too sweet, it's too cartoony, it's too whatever. But
you guys are wrong. Listen,
go read Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns. And just leave me alone.
Read all the comics where they're taking all of your heroes and turning them into Hydra agents. Do what you got to do, I guess. But no, this is Unstoppable Wasp is perfect and beautiful and a sweet, sweet cinnamon roll.
So that's what I've read. What have you been watching comic book wise?
Oh gosh. Well, my husband was rewatching Batman versus Superman last night. Did
you partake in that or did you run away from it?
I only showed up for when Wonder Woman showed up and was very snarky about the entire scene the whole way through. You know, whenever Batman and Superman are like, is she with you? I thought she was with you. And I'm like, you sent her an email like half an hour ago, dude.
That is exactly the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's see. Other than that, I don't really think I've been watching a whole lot. We are actually over on Excelsior going through the Captain America trilogy.
Yep.
And then on Friday, it was our friend Lily's birthday, and we all went to go see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
This is what I was getting at.
Okay, yes, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, what were your thoughts?
I feel like that movie was made specifically to delight me.
Yeah.
It was, and listen, I realize that the movie has its problems, and I've only seen it the one time, and I have yet to go watch it again with a more critical eye. But initially, I really enjoyed it. There were some parts where I felt like the jokes didn't quite reach. They were trying like just a little bit too hard, but I thought that they did overall like a really excellent job of because there are so many different characters in this movie, and we split them up into like all these different pairings and little mini groups, and I felt like we were able to like keep up with everybody's character development and their plot lines really, really well. And I really loved it. Found family, sisterhood, parents, chicks kicking ass, Rocket Raccoon. It had everything I wanted.
Yeah. This movie also felt like it was made specifically to delight me. So I left with a big smile on my face. I think they really played the humor well. They played it right up to the edge of it being too much.
Yeah.
And a lot of times putting jokes in places where it felt almost uncomfortable. But I think every time it played it right up to that line and just ended perfectly for me.
Yes.
They like didn't ever cross the line for me, but I could see how other people could go, oh, well, this was too jokey, or they're not taking this serious enough, or they're doing this thing and it seemed too cheesy. And so I can understand that, but for me, it was like right up to that line, perfect.
Yeah.
And there was literally a moment in that film where I was laughing out loud, and then 10 seconds later, I was starting to cry.
Yes.
Because it was so perfect that's not an over exaggeration. It's a literal thing that happened where they do something that's so funny, and then they just grab your heart and twist it, and you're like, oh no.
It
was emotional.
Yeah, it was it was really, really good. I thought that all the performances were really great. I really, really enjoyed it. I am looking forward to going and seeing it again, and then we actually are going to do an Excelsior episode on it. I think this next coming week or something like that. We'll figure it out. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I think that I liked it better than the first Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Yeah, I think I probably did too, actually. I really, really enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah.
I've also watched the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I know you haven't been watching, but you really need to.
I know. The only reason I'm behind is because it's not on Netflix and I don't have Hulu. Yeah. But I will find some shady internet methods to get caught up.
Or just come over.
Or I could just come over. I could just come over and hang out with you. Yeah, but no, I definitely miss watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I need to catch up with that.
They are doing the Hydra takeover storyline right.
Oh, good.
And it's so amazing. And this last episode was so emotional.
Don't tell me anything about it. I can't handle it. Like, Twitter is so dangerous on the days that episode that show airs, because I just have to like quickly scroll through because so many people are like, "Oh my god, my heart!" And I'm like, "I can't."
Yep. No, I'm not going to say anything, but it was super emotional, and it really worked perfectly for me. And this show, this second half of this season, has been the best it's ever been. This is peak Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. so far. And if this trend continues, I'm so sold into this show now, and I wasn't for a while, so that means a lot to me. It actually course corrected so well, and is now doing things that really, really intrigue me.
That's excellent. Yeah, I can't wait to catch up.
So from here, we are going to move into our segment for today. Today, we are talking to Shannon Watters. She is an editor over at Boom Studios. She started the Boombox imprint and co-created Lumberjanes.
Nice.
We are here today with Shannon Watters, editor at Boom Studios, head of the Boombox imprint, and co-creator / writer of Lumberjanes.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us the time and coming on to do an interview with us.
Yeah, no problem.
So you are the editor at Boom Studios. You kind of have many hats there, actually, it seems like. I've heard you say that your position as an editor at Boom works more like what people would assume that the position of a producer is. Can you expound on that for our listeners?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I get a lot of questions about like, oh yeah, what's your kind of, what does your day-to-day entail? And I think when people hear editor, they think somebody with a pencil behind their ear.
Yeah.
At a newspaper who's marking up with a lot of red pen, which is something that we do. But I think being an editor, at least at Boom and at Boombox, involves a lot of things that one might associate with a producer, which is that, you're sourcing projects, you're kind of creating projects, you're taking ideas and assembling a team, you're casting licensed projects, you're determining the tone, the look, the feel of a project, along with, what comes along with the more traditional editing role, which is like, then you're coordinating everybody on the project, and you're working toward a deadline, and you're marking things up with red pen.
Yeah.
But it is at least here, as an editor, you're expected to kind of build these projects, which is a role that is more producer-esque, I think, than most people's preconceived idea of what an editor is.
Yeah. So editing seems kind of like a thankless job in a lot of ways when it comes to at least the popularity of comics. I feel like when people talk about comics, they're more likely to know the letterer than they are the editor of the comics that they read. And lettering positions are almost famous for being overlooked in the comics industry. So that says something about editing. Has that been your experience, and does that bother you?
Oh, no, heavens no. That has been actually the funniest part of being a co-creator and a writer on Lumberjanes is that there are a lot of folks that kind of, that are shouting out my work specifically, and I'm very used to lifting up the people that I work with. No, I mean, I think you're probably right. It's just because I don't know that a lot of readers kind of know what an editor does.
Yeah.
But I don't feel I don't feel overlooked or like the gratitude, like there's no gratitude for what I
right.
do. I think that like a letterer, an editor's job is to kind of leave their mark in a way that is meant to feel kind of almost effortless. And even though it is certainly not. And so, I do think though that editors, we all have a certain style. I mean, the reason that I got into editing at all was kind of as a result of when Jamie Rich was the editor-in-chief at Oni in the late 90s and early 2000s. His tenure produced a lot of books that really shaped me as a comic book fan. Blue Monday and Hopeless Savages and the like.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the first time that I was aware of comics editing as a job, and I had always kind of had an editor's spirit.
Yeah.
And so that's when I became aware of it as a job. And so I don't know. I think I don't know that if you talk to a lot of editors, they would want kind of acclaim.
Yeah.
Our job is to make sure that the books can be the best that they can be, and that the trains run on time, and so the work itself is kind of its own reward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were one of the editors that really brought editing to the forefront of my mind and gave me the position of having a favorite editor, because just seeing the work that you did and like the people that you would bring in just was amazing. And I just really like the vibe for the comics that you edit. You can definitely tell that you curate what you put out.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That's a lovely thing to say.
So last I heard, you were head over the Kaboom imprint, and of course you started Boombox. Are you still mainly over those two imprints?
Yeah, I mean, I've moved on to almost exclusively Boombox now. My former associate editor, Whitney Leopard, who was an amazing editor, was promoted to editor and has taken over the Kaboom imprint.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wasn't too sure.
Yeah. No, it's great. She has more than earned it, and it is immensely satisfying to see her reach those lofty heights.
That's awesome. Can you give our listeners the basic idea behind the Boombox imprint for those who don't know?
Oh, sure. It's kind of been a moving target. It's been an evolving idea. Because it has mostly kind of been an imprint whose mission is revolved around books that are kind of my taste. But I think the focus of the Boombox imprint is to publish books that are aggressively kind and gleeful, that kind of exalt in in the story that they're telling. it's primarily publishes content, especially these days, YA content. That's kind of where it's evolved into. When we were starting the imprint, we were kind of figuring it out. And we tried a few different things and published a few different things, but there is a lot of content featuring marginalized voices and queer folks, and so we are really trying to create oh God, I hate to say, like, kind of a joyful little corner of the world.
Yeah.
Of the comic book store. It's tough out there these days.
Yeah,
it's real tough, and it's hard it's hard to make kind of hopeful creative work, but that's our mission statement. And I want to create a publishing space where a queer kid can pick up a book and feel like this is normal and this is safe, and see their identity exalted.
Yeah. You said the word there, to feel like it's normal, and I think that the Boombox imprint especially, but Boom for a little bit, has been pushing what most would call like diversity and including that a lot in their comics, but I think it is just a reflection of the normal world that we don't often see in our literature.
Yeah.
So Boom is becoming, to me, the new Image comics for me. And by that, I mean that for the past decade or so, I've grown to trust Image so much that I can just pick up any book sight unseen from them and expect something awesome. But I'm now starting to feel this way about Boom. And really my introduction to Boom was Lumberjanes. And so with Boombox and everything coming in, I really fell in love with Slam. And
wow, I'm so glad.
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying Boombox, but just Boom in general, like Grass Kings and Godshaper are two new titles I'm really digging right now. And Godshaper gave me one of my new favorite artists, Jonas Goonface.
Oh, I love Godshaper.
Yeah, it's so
Isn't that a wonderful book? Oh.
And then we had Liz Prince on a while back, and she really got me excited about Cody and the Creepies. So I went right out and picked that up on day one. And basically anything that mixes punk rock and comic books gets right to my heart. So that comic was almost made for me, and I really hope that it sells well and becomes an ongoing or something.
I had a ball. I love that book.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
I mean, it really is like these creators whose voices that I just love, and trying to give them a platform to tell these stories and just be like, hey, do whatever cool, goofy thing you're interested in doing. Is what we try to do here. Very, very complicated editorial strategy.
Yeah. So Misfit City is a Boombox title that's coming out, I think the day this episode's going to be dropping, that I'm super interested in. Are you editing that title?
I am. That's a fun one.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. Misfit City is it's a lot of fun. It's from the screenwriter Kiwi Smith of 10 Things I Hate About You and Legally Blonde, among many others. And Kiwi is just a ball. She's just a ball. And I reached out to her kind of just cold and was like, hey, I love your work. Your work has informed so much of my taste. And would you like to have lunch? And Misfit City kind of came out of that discussion at lunch. And it is kind of a play on like the Goonies. It's about a group of girls, a group of teenagers who are growing up or grew up in this kind of nothing town in the Pacific Northwest. And its only claim to fame is that it was the filming location for a classic 80s kids movie called The Gloomies. And so, they're kind of like, this sucks and nothing good happens here. And then they stumble upon a real live pirate map and this adventure that they just weren't expecting. And it's kind of it's both an adventure comic and a reflection on growing up in a small town and feeling like you can't really figure out who you are while you're living in this, in this place that feels so small and so limiting. And it's kind of, telling you like, no, actually you can kind of figure out who you are and find out who you are, no matter where you are, as long as you surround yourself with people who support you and who come through for you. And it's just a lot of fun. I love that book. Naomi, who's the artist, she's extraordinary. She's incredible. And Kurt, who's co-writing with Kiwi, is wonderful. And it's just a fantastic book and a great team. And I feel really, really lucky that we're getting all to work together on this book, because it's just a ball.
That sounds really, really awesome. So that is going to be out the day this drops. So if you're listening to this, go out and get issue 1 from your local comic shop.
Please support these comics at the comic shop. We really appreciate it.
So we've been talking a little bit about you bringing in different creators to Boom, and I kind of have you to thank for giving Kate Leth and Ryan North an opportunity to make print comics at Boom, which I assume is what caught the eye of Marvel and brought us Patsy Walker, Hellcat, and Squirrel Girl. So I have you to thank for those two, maybe 2 of the most amazing Marvel titles. I'm just going to attribute that to you.
Oh, you mustn't. No, those 2 were already like outrageously good. I just gave them a platform. Yeah, you can't give me too much credit.
But it is awesome that you have this great eye for picking these creators who do such great things and may otherwise be overlooked by the larger comic industry when they do just their work online, because it doesn't seem like a large part of the comic industry in previous years had been that interested in people that were doing that. So it was really cool to see that you were really interested in doing that.
I mean, I think that just came down to I don't really have a traditional comics. I don't have a traditional comic book background as far as my taste goes. I was crazy growing up about newspaper comics and animation history, and I got into manga when I was in middle school. And that led me to China Clugston's Blue Monday when it first came out over at Oni. And that kind of opened my eyes to kind of the world of American indie comics in general. I'd read Bone, but that was kind of it. I'd never been a big fan of superhero comics.
Yeah.
It had never really caught me. And so I was very into that throughout high school and then stumbled onto webcomics. And so got super duper into webcomics in high school and college when that world was just kind of starting to blossom. John Allison's Scary Go Round was big good times then, as it is now. And a lot of really incredible young artists were doing extraordinary webcomics, and so that really informed my taste. So coming up as an editor, your background informs who you're going to be looking for and seeking out. And so it seemed natural to me that I would look for these voices on the web and in indie comics. It didn't make as much sense to me to look in the traditional avenues for talent, because I just didn't have that foundation. It was something I had to learn coming to Boom. I'd read kind of the basics, the more seminal kind of comic book stories, but I hadn't, like these superhero comics, I guess, but I hadn't had that base to go off of. So it it made sense to look elsewhere for
definitely.
talent. And I'm very lucky that I was able to do that and give such incredible talent a platform that has led to other things. They would have gotten there without me, I'm sure. They're incredible. So.
Were you also the one that gave Casey Green the job on working on Regular Show?
I did.
Well, then I have you to thank for being able to walk into a comic shop and a group of people being like, hey, I know this guy that's working on this comic. Because he's more of a friend of some friends. But I spent the 4th of July with him once, and then he went on to do that. And I was like, hey, I know a celebrity.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I love Casey's work. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's from here in Oklahoma. So I have a bunch of friends that went to school with him and stuff. So.
Oh, that's wild. That's awesome.
So let's move on, talk about Lumberjanes a little bit, the amazing Lumberjanes that you co-created. Can you give me a quick rundown on how that happened? I think you had approached the other creators about this idea and it just kind of formulated as a group project, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was, it had been kind of a situation where there was a time limit on needing an idea for something, and Grace is one of my close friends, and we kind of went home that weekend and sat down, and we were like, okay, like let's come up with something, and we wrote down a bunch of bad ideas, and one of them was essentially Girl Scout camp but with monsters. And we were like, that's funny. That's a funny idea. That's good. And we had been working on characters that really didn't have anywhere to go at that point. A group of 5 characters. We had been talking abstractly about this kind of Magic 5 idea in kids fiction, and the group of 5 friends and how that works in various kind of Saturday morning cartoon show style settings. And so we had kind of the bare bones of these characters, and we had this idea, and we went back and forth and ended up putting together this pitch relatively quickly. We had Brooke do character designs, also relatively quickly. Whitney knew Brooke from her Whitney Leopard knew Brooke from her school days, and was like, she'd be flipping perfect. And I was like, yes, I agree. So we had Brooke kind of do these character designs, and the impetus for creating this project ended up not happening. It didn't end up panning out, but I kind of took this project to my bosses, and I was like, I think there's something here, something good. And they were like, we agree. And then it just kind of sat there. It just kind of sat there and was like this good thing that, is on, is more or less soft greenlit, but we don't know what we're going to do with it.
Yeah.
And around the same time, Boombox is getting underway, and we needed to come up kind of with a second project. And Noelle had moved back to Los Angeles, and she had been my intern when she was in school for a semester. She was a design intern here for a semester.
Nice.
And we had become good friends, and so we had brunch, and I was like, hey, I have this book that I'm looking for a co-writer for, and some character designs, and this group of girls, and they're at scout camp, and Noelle was like, yeah, I'm in. This sounds great. And so, yeah, it just kind of came out of that. We started to actually develop it. We started to actually get it underway. And when it was announced, it just kind of steamrolled. People looked at it and they were like, yup, into it, love it. But it was basically it was kind of the book that we wanted to have when we were kids,
Yeah.
It was, the initial idea was just trying to create the Saturday morning cartoon, the multi-volume, the YA series for girls that we would have wanted to have.
Yeah, it definitely has that Saturday morning cartoon feel. That's what I always feel like when I read Lumberjanes. Like I'm sitting down with a bowl of cereal on a Saturday morning when I was 10.
Oh, that's what I always want. I always want it to kind of feel like that. I always want it to feel like this kind of timeless, as like fun. I just want it to feel fun. So
yeah. Lumberjanes was created by this group, and as it's gone on has had a bit of a rotating cast of creators. How do you decide who is going to work on what each story? Is it just based off of who has time or who has an idea for it?
I mean, it really is availability. It's and what everybody else has going on. It had been meant to be an 8-issue limited series,
right?
And so nobody kind of expected to have to reckon with what would happen if we did more. And so everybody is fairly busy, and so we just kind of we've kind of settled into kind of a nice rhythm and a nice place. But it has become bigger than us, than the original team, and that is really, really cool. It's really magical.
Well, one of the things that came out of Lumberjanes that really surprised me, and I think worked really well, but it kind of came out of nowhere, and I was like, that's a really weird combination, was the Lumberjanes Gotham Academy. How did that come about?
I think they kind of came to us, which was really cool. It came about really organically. And we're not huge. The original team we're not like massive crossover people,
yeah,
as a rule. But that just seemed like it would work. It just seemed like it would be a natural pairing, natural way of looking at it. And so we kind of were like, all right, this seems to fit, and we're glad that it went as well as it did. It's very satisfying to see.
Yeah, one of the things I really appreciate about Lumberjanes is that what I've really come to appreciate about Boombox in general is that there is this feeling of this positive tone and this joy with all the books, and it's something that I don't have to worry about loaning to my younger sister-in-laws. It's like comics I can give to people and not worry about like it being too violent or too aggressive or too dark of a tone or just too negative, which all too often comics can be.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
So I've really appreciated that outlook that the Lumberjanes especially brings to that.
I'm so glad that you feel that way. I mean, that really is something that is important to me, is to keep that sense of joy, that sense of positivity in the books that we make. There's a lot of places in this industry for kind of the darker side of things, and there should be avenues for that, but we really try and keep it a very positive space, very positive corner of the comics industry.
Yeah. What's your favorite moment or story from having worked in the comics industry thus far?
Favorite moment or story, huh? Like with the industry in general?
Or just something that came out of it, like maybe a really interesting story that you heard from fans, or an interaction you had, or just a project that was really rewarding.
Every queer teen or queer kid that comes up to us at conventions and says how much Lumberjanes has meant to them is the best. Yeah. It's the reason to do it. Because Lumberjanes is an enormously intense and draining. You wouldn't think so, but it's an enormously intense and draining project for us.
Right.
It's not an easy project, and so every kid that has come up to us and said like, "Oh, Lumberjanes changed my life. Lumberjanes made me love comics. Lumberjanes meant the world to me." It's like, oh well, this is why we do it. This is every single time that happens. It's the best day. It's the best. It's fuel for the fight. It's the stuff that keeps you going.
Yeah. So creators, and maybe even more so editors, often have a discerning eye for media. What are some things that you are really excited about right now that you can recommend to us and our listeners as far as music, films, books, or comics go?
Okay. Let's see. What am I into right now? What have I been reading? It's so funny because at home my wife and I are rewatching Mad Men, nice. Which is so good.
Yeah.
That might surprise you, but it's super good. And I've been catching up. I've been catching up with some comics that I've had that I've kind of had in my coffers for a while. I just read the second volume of Tony Cliff's Delilah Dirk series, which is incredible. If you haven't read it, if you love like Indiana Jones, you will love Delilah Dirk. It's
awesome.
Amazing. It's beautifully drawn. It's an amazing adventure series. I have sitting on my nightstand, which just came out Wednesday, is My Brother's Husband, which is Jangora, let's see if I'm pronouncing it right, Jangora Tagame, who is a queer or a gay male Japanese erotica artist who is just renowned, incredible. Over at Massive, they publish his work. And it's a book about a little girl whose brother, has a husband, and it's really, really good. It explores like Japan's kind of parts of their gay culture and the pressure to stay in the closet, how it's been like affected by Western attitudes towards gay people. It's very, very, very good. And I'm liking it very much. I feel like I'm always, whenever I'm on a podcast, I'm always like in a Lori Colwin phase, which is just like a state of my life. I just go in and out of Lori Colwin phases. Lori Colwin, if you haven't read Lori Colwin, she wrote the most beautiful kind of meditations on living.
Okay.
She writes these beautiful novels. Happy All the Time is kind of her most well-known.
Oh, I think I have heard of that one. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Nobody does details like Lori Colwin. They're just kind of expository reflections on life, and nothing bad particularly happens. It's very fairly conflict free, except for like the inner conflict of like the act of, I guess like loving another person and having that person be a person that's different from you.
Yeah.
But I recently reread her book, Family Happiness, which is about a woman who is very good. She's very good, and she is she struggles with being good and having desires like a human. Samurai Gourmet. If you have not watched Samurai Gourmet on Netflix, please do.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that. I'll have to check that out.
Samurai Gourmet is based on a manga, and it is about it's I don't know how to describe the genre. There's another series in the same genre called Wakame Zuki, I think. But Samurai Gourmet is about a retired salaryman who essentially just goes out to eat and feels a little embarrassed about the fact that about various desires that he has, because for so long he was kind of at the mercy of this career. And he has this like imaginary friend samurai that kind of encourages him to like enjoy his life. And it's literally just a man going to restaurants and eating and experiencing like the depths of pleasure and joy for the first time in his life.
That sounds pretty amazing.
It's wonderful. I know that's like a very silly thing. It's like, but it's wonderful. I love it very much. Gosh, I have someone in my life who's very, very special to me, who recommended, who found out that I wasn't like super familiar with Bradbury stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and because I don't like apocalypse books, and so Fahrenheit 451 was not like a favorite of mine. Yeah. And she was like, "You have to read Something Wicked This Way Comes," and so I'm reading that right now, and it's fabulous. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I love Bradbury's short stories. I felt like he was a real big master of just doing amazing things with such little words.
Yeah, well, that's she said, she's like, sometimes you write in a way that like reminds me of Bradbury, and I was like, wow, that's a compliment. I should probably look into this. And so yeah, so that's what's on the old Shannon brain space right now. The things that I'm engaging in is that's a broad spectrum, I know.
Oh yeah, it's good.
But that's what's been taking up my time lately. That's what I've been really into. I tend to read a lot of long forms.
Yeah.
I tend to read a lot of long form articles. So longform.org, if you want to read what I'm reading, it's generally whatever has been featured on longform.org each and every day.
Nice.
I say this administration has ruined a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
But the fact that they have to be written about in long form often really bums me out, because I have to think deeply about them often, and that makes me mad.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fine. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. We'll have to check out some of those things. Thank you so much for those recommendations.
I hope you guys like them.
Yeah.
They're a little off the beaten path, but that's, I guess, you're a boombox reader, so
yeah,
you're
definitely
used to that.
So aside from Misfit City, what other future projects are currently in the works with you, and when can we expect to see them?
Well, this summer we have a really cool, which has not been announced yet. We have a very, very cool book coming out where, if you are a fan of Empire Records and also
awesome.
like, spy movies,
yeah, okay,
you will love it. It's kind of an Empire Records meets Charlie's Angels, but teenagers kind of a project.
That's awesome.
And I won't say too much more now, but that's going to be coming out in August, and is going to be really, really great. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, and then we have a few exciting projects that are in the works for the winter and spring of next year. And yeah, I'm always on new projects. So I always got a bunch of different irons in the fire. But yeah, if you are enjoying the work that we're doing, then I think that you'll probably enjoy the stuff that's coming up.
Yeah.
And as always, to all of you that read our little imprint, I really, really appreciate you taking a chance on us every month with your $4. That's a lot of money to spend on a comic book, and we really, really appreciate it.
Well, is there anything else that we missed that you'd like to promote or talk about?
Oh, goodness. No, I think that's it.
All right.
That's it. Thank you for continuing to read Lumberjanes, everyone.
Yeah.
And for continuing to read Boombox books in general.
Well, thank you for Boombox, because it is amazing. So keep up the good work with all of that. So to wrap up, where can we follow you online and keep up with the things that you do?
Oh, I'm most active, I would say, on my Twitter. My Twitter handle is Shanito, SHANITO. You can kind of, I should probably use it more for promotion. But again, as an editor, I'm more comfortable promoting other people's stuff than I am my own. But I do promote occasionally the things that I do on there. However, you'll probably get a lot of like opinions on on One Direction. I didn't get Harry Styles solo tickets this morning. That was upsetting.
Oh no.
That's a shame. But every single person in my life is like, oh, phew. She's not gonna drag me to the Harry Styles concert. Oh, thank God. Thank goodness. They'll find a lot of that. You'll find a lot of gay opinions on terrible country music. Yeah, it's really it's a fine collection of opinions on the old Twitter. Well, so that is, if you are going to follow me, that is probably your best bet. So.
Well, we've been following you for a while on Twitter, and I've enjoyed it. So I can encourage people to go follow you and get those One Direction opinions, even if you don't care about One Direction.
So such good opinions. I'm full of them.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and being on today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. It was a delight.
All right, so we are back and here to give recommendations.
Excellent.
Sarah, do you have a recommendation for our listeners for something they should read or watch comic-wise?
Yes, I highly recommend Chelsea Cain's Mockingbird Run. It was recently nominated for 2 Eisners. And it's an excellent series. The art is absolutely beautiful. The writing is utterly stunning. If you liked Bobby Morse at all in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you will love the Mockingbird series. Yes. She's so smart. She's so capable. She's so brilliant. And it really is probably one of my favorite comic series ever. And I highly recommend that. I also really do highly recommend Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat by Kate Leth. It is another one that is some people might call it a little cutesy or whatever, but it's very heartwarming. Like, it's just really great to go through and, not have to worry about, is everybody here secretly a Hydra agent? You know what I mean? Like, it's really nice to just experience these characters as they're trying to, like, just go through and, like, be good guys and just generally be good guys, not necessarily fighting the big fights.
Absolutely.
Kate Leth is a gem and I adore her. And so Mockingbird by Chelsea Cain and Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat by Kate Leth.
Have you read Lumberjanes at all?
I don't think so.
You should be reading Lumberjanes because I think it's right up your alley. I think you will fall in love with these girls in their monster summer camp.
Okay, yeah, no, so, I'm in. I'm there. Yeah, I am into this.
It's fantastic. It's very much has a very similar feel to Hellcat.
Okay, great.
Some of that cutesy, cartoony, but also serious and women kicking ass.
Yeah, so it's my primary value in fiction.
It's great. That is my recommendation to you and to our listeners.
Excellent.
Having Shannon Watters just recently talking to her and reading some of the Lumberjane stuff that I've been reading before. Mm-hmm. It's so good. It's so fantastic. Everyone should be reading Lumberjanes, no matter what gender or age you are.
That's right.
So that's our recommendations. Sarah, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me on the show. I love doing this with you.
Where can people find you?
The easiest place to find me is probably over on Twitter. You can find me at Elsa Grab the Salt. And I think I've got like a Tumblr link there in my bio and stuff like that. But that's probably going to be the easiest place. Again, over on commonroomradio.com, you can find all of the shows that I'm a part of over there and some shows that Vinton is a part of as well. Yeah. So basically Twitter. I basically like inhabit Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, but I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to find me on Instagram. So that's pretty chill.
Yeah, you'll be able to see her amazing watercolors she's been doing of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and Spider-Man.
Yep.
Probably a couple more by the time you
probably
this is
so. Yeah, I've been recently trying to be more creative and artistic and working on writing and art and things like that. And so yeah, you can just witness my blooming creativity over in the social media world.
I don't know. It's bloomed. You just need to do it more often.
I do think yes.
It's amazing.
Yes, yeah.
All right. If you'd like to support this podcast, check out patreon.com/Graphocast, GRAPHOCAST. Follow us on Twitter at read_brave and follow us on Instagram at readbravecomics. And personally, I'm at Flesh Eater. Please remember to leave a rating and review on iTunes. That'll really help us out a lot. So from the Graphomania Podcast Network, I'm Vinton Bain.
I'm Sarah Cade Pezant.
And we'll see you next week.
Excellent.
The mystery.
This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, graphocast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.